Today on the Warfare Parenting Podcast, we're back with Kathy Cunningham to go deeper into the tough but necessary work of setting boundaries with our adult children. This time, we're addressing the messy moments. What do you do when your child pushes back, oversteps, or manipulates? What if your love is being taken for granted? If you've ever felt guilt for saying enough or shame for creating space, this conversation will give you clarity, confidence, and peace rooted in biblical truth. Welcome to Warfare Parenting, faith-driven strategies for struggling parents of teens and adult children. I'm your host, Laine Lawson Craft. You're in the right place if you're battling with prodigal children, facing family crises, or seeking spiritual guidance in parenting. Today, we'll equip you with powerful biblical strategies to reclaim your child's destiny and restore hope in your family. Let's step into this faith-filled journey of hope and healing together. I am so glad you have joined us, Kathy. I am so happy to have you back. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Laine, for inviting me. It's always so much fun to spend some time with you.
Well, you bring us such great wisdom. And the reason I love having you often is we just cut to the nuggets of your expertise. You've been doing this a long time. Your wisdom is profound and it is spiritually sound. So that is just an amazing mix. And we're just honored that you spend this valuable time with us. So thank you again.
Thank you. This is a subject that I am so passionate about, and I don't think there's enough information out there right now.
I don't either. And if
Yeah,
it is, it doesn't really factor in the spiritual
absolutely.
aspect
Yeah.
of it, which I
So,
think is very important.
yeah. hmm
Well, we're going to drop right into it.
Okay.
How do you set boundaries when adult children are emotionally manipulative or abusive?
That's so hard, isn't it? It's a hard one. But the reality is the first thing we have to do is admit it, acknowledge it. And I think that's so hard as parents because we don't want to see our children like that. That hurts. That's not who they are really inherently. But sometimes because of outside influences or situations within themselves, it does happen. And so we have to be aware, we have to name it, we have to actually acknowledge this is happening because manipulation and abuse are not love. And tolerating that is not going to help us or them. And we have to remember that boundaries are not punishment, they are protection. They're protection for us, but they're also protection for them. So, practically, this would be some things that we may have to do. And again, this is very hard when it comes to being our adult children, our children that we love so much. We may need to limit contact with them to healthy forms of communication that kind of keep that space. We might need to refuse to respond to guilt and manipulation or even lies. We may have to step away from conversations that turn emotionally volatile. And we have to just spiritually, we're going to have to trust that saying no to destructive patterns is saying yes to God's design for dignity and respect. And what it will do as we do these things, number one, it protects us, but hopefully it will give God room to work in them. As long as we put up with it, He can't do that because it's being allowed.
Well, and I think my next question is so part of this. What role does forgiveness play when boundaries have been violated? But I kind of want to go back, if you don't mind. I want to talk about how do we handle forgiveness in this place of emotional manipulation and just abuse, just being, short with you as a mother or being ugly or manipulating. I mean, do you bring it to the light? Do you say to that adult child, hey, I feel like you're manipulating me? Or, hey, that's not the way. I mean, how do you, we're going to be real here. I mean, how do
Yeah.
you handle that situation?
I think the first thing we always have to do is work on our own heart because if we're not in a good place, we're not going to say things or respond in a healthy way that's going to be helpful. So, first, we have to find our place of forgiveness and remembering that forgiveness is not a feeling, it's not something that we're doing for them, we're doing it for us. It's a choice, and it's a choice to keep us from being sick. It's not about them. And it doesn't mean when we forgive someone that we allow things to keep happening that are harmful. It is a spiritual thing. It's something God asks us to do. And so once we have done that, and that might be working with somebody, it might be going to a support group. It's going to probably be a process that we're going to have to work through. Once we've done that, though, then the boundaries come into play. I think we talked about this in one of our other podcasts that we forgive, but that doesn't mean we don't set boundaries. So now we address things, but we're calm because we're not coming in there with resentment and bitterness. Our heart is clear and we can say things like, I love you, but it is not okay to talk to me with disrespect. And when you do, I will remove myself and reminding them we're both adults and adults have the ability to handle their emotions. And so when emotions get out of control, we're going to take a breath. We're going to take a space. We're going to take a pause. So you verbalize that, but from a calm place. If you can't do it from a calm place, then probably it's not time to do it yet.
Well, and I know in my personal experience, I didn't want to give that space initially, but I learned that space is kind of a reset. It
It
kind of
is.
lets both of the adult people, which is the adult mother and the adult child, almost have time to reflect and not say things you regret
Yeah.
and gives you just time to reset. Is that a good way to put it?
Absolutely. You can call it a reset, you can call it a pause, whatever it is. But yeah, anytime emotions become dysregulated, when everybody's in a place of overwhelm, we actually get into what's called our back brain or the amygdala, and we get into fight and flight response. So nothing is being accomplished. So if we can kind of remember that, it will help us to realize that when I get into what I call the red zone, and my adult child's in the red zone, we're done. There is nothing good that's going to happen in the red zone. So the goal is to take a pause so everybody's brains can calm down. And then we can get back into what I call at least the yellow zone or hopefully the green zone.
Well, let me ask you this. This just hit me. It's normal, correct? For sometimes, and
Mhm.
maybe more than all, sometimes parents are oil and water. I mean, I'm just saying it's normal at some points to get in the red zone, isn't it, or is it not?
It is normal. The thing that we really, really want to work on, especially as parents, is to be aware that we're traveling in that direction because there are really great tools we can use to, we get into the yellow zone, we're about to hit the red zone because once we're in the red zone, we can't pull out. It's very difficult to pull out, and then it's just a lot of things done and said that we will regret. So if we can kind of begin to train our brain not to do that, I believe we can get there, but it takes time. It takes a lot of practice. And in the meantime, we're gonna sometimes get into the red zone. When we do, that's probably when we're gonna go back and say, I shouldn't have reacted like that. I'm so sorry. We need to own it. Whether we feel like we were aggravated to that point or not, we still have to own our behavior, not how somebody made us feel.
Well, and do we make them own their behavior if they were back to that abusive or just said things that were mean? I mean,
Yeah.
do we make them accountable?
I think it's perfectly acceptable to be able to say, when you did this, I felt very disrespected. These kind of words are very hurtful to me, but we can't make anybody do anything. That's up to them. So it always comes down, and I know a lot of people don't like to hear this, especially parents, because I get that all the time on my Instagram page. Well, what about them? And I get that. I was there at one time. Like, why do I have to do all the work? Well,
Right.
you just do because you are the
Right.
most hopefully mature, healthy person in the
That's
mix.
right.
And
That's
that is the
right.
person that's going to have to take the steps forward. Does that mean that you're a doormat? Does that mean that you get treated any way they want to? No, that's where the boundaries come in.
That's so good, Kathy. I have this. How can a parent handle repeated boundary testing without burning out?
I think the biggest thing that parents do wrong that create that burnout, because yeah, if you look at a boundary like a fence, right? And if somebody's always destroying your fence and you're constantly having to repair it, you're going to get tired, right? So you have to fortify your fence, and you have to, what that means boundary wise is that when you set a boundary, you stick to it. And there is no compromise, there's no backing up from it. And that's usually what we don't do as parents. We make this big statement, this is what I'm going to do, and then we don't do it. So we keep
Yeah,
getting
we
our
don't follow
fence,
through. Yes.
pushed down, and we're worn out because we have to keep putting the fence back up again. And once we've made our initial decree of what our boundary is, or our limit, whatever we want to call it, a lot of people don't like the word boundary, so we'll say our limits. Once we do that, then we need to stay solid on that. And we don't need to, after the initial explanation, explain ourselves. We don't have to keep explaining why we're doing this. We did that. We did it one time. That's all we need to do.
That's great. I love that because everybody here, let's remind ourselves, are adults.
Yes,
These, yeah, we're not
absolutely.
talking about a 10-year-old.
Yeah, right.
I want to talk about this because you're talking about the red yellow zone.
Yeah.
How what are some spiritual or emotional warning signs that it's time to set new boundaries?
I think that resentment to me is the number one sign that boundaries are being violated. A number two one is this constant state of anxiety, especially before interactions with your adult child. Another one might just be like, as we talked about, feeling drained all the time. We're just feeling fatigued, like this is just becoming so much effort. That is pretty much an indicator that either you don't have any boundaries or you're not supporting them. You're not keeping them in place.
I think the resentment's probably, don't you think, when you
That's the
start
biggest one.
resenting,
That's the
yeah.
one I see the most. And it kind of creeps in slowly, but we need to pay attention to it. You see it with when even parents are just over helping or overdoing. And at some point they're the ones choosing to do it, but they get resentful without even thinking, well, I'm the one that's choosing to do this because they get tired and their resources are being, overwhelmed. So yes,
And
resentment's a big one.
we can use the example of, let's just say, being a grandparent and babysitting. Asking the grandparent so many times in a row to
Mhm.
babysit, you're like, you know, that's your warning sign.
Yeah.
Hey, we need to sit down and discuss. We don't mind babysitting,
Yeah.
but we only want to babysit and set that boundary. Is that the
Having,
right way to do
yes,
it?
having conversations around these things is the key. That's what I see the biggest problem is there's no parameters, there's no boundaries. It's just you get a call and there's an expectation, and then everybody gets disappointed. Everybody gets overwhelmed. So sit down and talk about it, in a healthy, fairly healthy family. Now we're talking about people that are abusive and manipulative. That is different. That's where you've got to then take the lead and you've got to talk about what your boundaries are. And of course, we know they're probably not going to be real happy about that, but that's where we have to stay solid. And I have found when we support our boundaries, when we keep them in place, eventually, most of the time, they will begin to respect us.
Yes. Yes, that's so good. And that leads me to this. How can faith help a parent stay, consistent when it feels like everything's falling apart? You've put these boundaries in place. Maybe there is manipulation or abuse, and you've put these boundaries in place. How do you stay consistent when it feels like it's falling apart, Kathy?
Well, it truly is our anchor, right? Our relationship with God is that surrender to Him. It's giving these situations to Him, but it's also knowing that boundaries are very biblical, and I use this scripture often, Galatians 6, 2 to 5. And it talks about, everyone should bear their own burdens. And so there are responsibilities that every adult should take. And that could be just things like finances, but it also is emotional responsibilities as an adult. And that is their responsibility to take care of those things. And then there is another one, is carry your own load. So that's one, that's your own responsibilities. And then bear one another's burdens. So what does that mean? That is when there's a boulder. That is when there's a crisis. And we would go in there and help anybody during those times. But we get that confused and we act like everyday responsibilities is a boulder, and it's not. It is their little backpack that they need to carry. And that's whether it's their physical being, their emotional being, or their spiritual being. If they're an adult, that is theirs, not yours.
Well, Kathy, I experienced this, having a ministry and a very national platform. And then I had these prodigals and these children that I had to use boundaries with, or we wouldn't have gotten deliverance and freedom. And now they're all whole. Um, there was a good bit of criticism from some fellow Christians, believers about, about these firm boundaries
Yeah,
that
yeah.
are essential. We both know these are
Hmm.
essential boundaries.
Yes.
How do we handle outside criticisms or, people piping in, telling us, judging us on how
Yeah.
we're parenting, particularly prodigal or wayward children?
Yeah. I think the first thing is you have to get a solid group, community support group of people walking that journey with you, because they're going to help you to see, no, I'm not crazy. This is exactly what we need to do. And you support each other on that journey. So then you get the confidence in what you're doing. And then when people outside that do not understand say things, you just take it as what it is. It's just someone without knowledge. But sometimes also we need to be careful who we share with. We need to be careful with certain subjects. Is this going to be helpful for them to even know? It's not because I'm coming from a place of shame. They're just not going to be helpful. I need encouragement. I need good tools, and they don't have them. So that's where
Right.
we have to be careful who we're sharing with. And if they do find out somehow and they say things, then you just have to realize they are unknowledgeable. They don't understand, and don't take it personally.
Well, and I want to just tell anybody listening, when I got the word capacity from God,
Yeah.
so many of these people did not have the capacity. Listen,
Yes.
if you've never walked down this road,
Yeah.
you don't even have an, I mean, that's about any road, right?
Yeah.
It's about, we talked about that earlier. If you hadn't walked a mile in my shoes, then you really can't really completely understand. You might have some other experiences that are relatable.
Yeah.
A lot of that was just sheer ignorance. If
Yes.
you understand it was just sheer
Yeah.
ignorance. They had no idea the sleepless nights and the millions of times you were broken hearted. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
capacity of the other, and
Mhm.
like you said, you've got to be very careful on who you confide in, because can they handle it, number one, and do they really even have any insight that would be beneficial? Isn't that
Exactly.
the best way to put it?
That is perfect,
Okay,
Laine. Yeah.
good,
So
good.
again, I think when you realize that and you realize that they don't have the knowledge to give you, then you're able to just, we say in our group, I have a group called PAL, Parents of Addicted Loved Ones, that I facilitate. And we say, take what works and leave the rest. And so we have to kind of do that with people that don't understand our journey many times. If they say something that maybe makes some sense, take it. But if not, just leave it, because they really do not understand.
Well, this leads us. I want you to share. I think support community is essential for the parent, the
Yeah.
loved one. Can you share with us what all of the ways you offer to help us as support, and then how we can find out more about it?
Absolutely. So, pretty much all my resources are on my website, and that's at kathycunningham.org. I do have a membership, which we deal with all the different subjects. I have 10 plus workshops, courses in there that kind of lead you through how to navigate these different situations about boundaries and grief, all those different things. We have a community, we have a support group. So lots of stuff there. It's a monthly fee, very low, but it's all on my website. And I also do want to mention, because I know a lot of people are dealing with a adult child with an addiction. And the group that I facilitate, and they're nationwide, is called palgroup.org. And I just want to get that out there because I think there's a limited amount of resources for parents in that area. And it's just an amazing group. They give you all the tools and all the love and all that you need, the support to walk that journey. And there's many other great support groups out there too to look into.
Well, Kathy, one of the greatest nuggets we discussed in a previous boundaries episode, and if you didn't hear it, it really is powerful too. It'll just give you the 1-2 punch when it comes to boundaries. I love the fact we discussed the short-term pain
Yeah.
for the long-term peace. It has stuck with me so long.
Yeah.
Would you maybe end today? You know, I always like to ask, what would you like to end with? I'm leading your ending today, if you don't mind. You know, talk a little bit. None of us like to face these they're just not comfortable positions. They're not things you really want to have to address, but you got to for healing for
Mhm.
everybody. Would you discuss a little bit when it comes to boundaries to protect your heart, to
Mhm.
get them onto the road of recovery in whatever way that is, that there is a short-term pain for a
Yes.
long-term peace? Could you discuss just a little bit about that?
Absolutely. And I think that's why people do not parents especially, do not set boundaries because it's uncomfortable and it causes us pain. And so it feels easier to just give in. But the reality is that giving in will cause that long-term discomfort. So again, it comes down to yes, we have to have some short-term discomfort and pain to get the long-term relief. But the opposite is true also. If we have short term comfort, we have this moment, oh, that felt good to just give in and allow them to be hurtful to me or give them the money that really I shouldn't have given to them, then we're going to have that long-term discomfort. We're going to have that long-term pain. So we really have to look at the exchange rate of these things and say it is so worth, although hard, to take that short term discomfort for the long term gain we're going to get. And that's where community is going to come in.
Yes. And would it be okay for me to add this? I say, what do you have to lose? Do
Yes.
you understand what I'm saying? Because they're in a mess,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
they're in chaos, they're
Yeah.
in disrespectful positions, possibly. What do they have to lose? I mean, it's already not going well. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you think of it like that, it might be very much the motivating factor that you need to take on that short-term discomfort. And
Yeah.
most of the time, it will work out that way. That short-term discomfort will give you a lifetime of resolve and a better connection, a better relation, and better results.
Amen. Well, listen, boundaries aren't barriers, they're bridges to healing. Even when it's hard, staying consistent and clear is one of the most loving things you can do for that child and yourself. Remember, God isn't calling you to rescue your adult child, He's calling you to reflect His wisdom. And sometimes that means letting consequences speak louder than words. Stay steady, stay kind, and stay prayerful. This is how you parent with strength and love. Thank you again for joining us on this episode of Warfare Parenting Podcast, and we will see you next week. Thank you for joining us on Warfare Parenting. Remember, you can overcome even the most challenging parenting battles with faith and the right strategies. If this episode has touched your heart or provided valuable insights, please subscribe to our podcast and leave a review. Your support helps other struggling parents find the hope and guidance they need. Until next time, remain steadfast in faith and remember, together we never give up on our families. Visit my website too for my new book, Warfare Parenting, a daily battle plan to fight for your child. The first 10 days are free on my website and many other free resources. Go to LaineLawsonCraft.com.